is as good as it gets, good as it gets.
Welcome in.
Let's get to work.
The fastest growing sports spectacular. It's the Big E Sports Show. Your 1 hour comprehensive expose of all things in the sports universe. With a focus on some of the biggest sports icons on the planet. Now, here's your host, the one and only award-winning Elissa Walker Campbell.
Hey, welcome back to the Big E Sports Show. I am your host, Elissa Walker Campbell, and we are joined by Bill Bender of the Sporting News, one of the most respected national voices in college football. And college football, the playoff field is now set. So we're going to dissect the big picture and examine whether or not the committee ultimately got it right. Good to have you on the program. Thank you, Bill.
Hey, Alyssa, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. I know it's been a while, but great to be back on your show.
Absolutely. Well, stepping back from the individual teams for a moment, when you look at the final college football playoff field as a whole, do you believe that the committee got it right?
No, they're coming right out at you. No, Notre Dame should have been in. And I heard all the justifications, whether it was head-to-head with Miami or Alabama playing in a conference championship game. I do think Notre Dame, to me, I understand the reasoning and the justification with the Miami and the head-to-head and moving them around the rankings, but there was nothing in that final weekend where they had already ranked Notre Dame ahead of Miami. So there was nothing to put them behind them at that point. I also think the Irish were one of the teams that could have won the national championship. So we can talk about how they handled that with skipping the bowl game or some of the fallout with the ACC afterward. But, man, I would have had – when I was putting together our production in the final hour there, I had the Irish in and I had Alabama out. Alabama out. I had Miami in as well. Now, had Virginia won, that might have changed the math a little bit.
So what do you think in terms of the committee? What was their criteria why they did not include the Irish after that fantastic 10-2 season?
So I'm not going to blame the committee completely here, though. Like, when you make decisions that are hard, you have to justify them however you can, and everybody's complaint. Alyssa, I don't know that how many people say, man, the committee just did a great job there and their explanation was perfect. You never hear that because these guys are in charge. And I think so. I don't begrudge them for the reasoning necessarily. They were going to use the head-to-head. They slid the rankings back-to-back and did that. I was kind of hoping that Alabama would be left out because then we could blame conference championship games, which my feeling on those is they don't quite marry well with the 12-team playoff. I would like to see us get rid of them, in fact. And that might have got Greg Sankey on a kick to try to get that to happen, especially when you lose playoff teams because of it, because nobody's complaining about BYU missing out. You know, BYU is the only team to win 10 or more games in the regular season each of the last 2 years, and they haven't made the playoff. So if there's another school that had a little bit of a gripe, it's probably the Cougars.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, beyond Notre Dame, I mean, which team left out of the playoff had the strongest argument that it deserved a spot? And you're saying BYU?
Well, I'm saying they're one, and I know you're not going to hear this one either. Texas had a compelling case. The Horns went 9-3, and then they did the other thing that I'm worried about. They beat Oklahoma. They lose to Ohio State in the regular season opener, and then that ends up being the third loss. So we're not going to put 9-3 teams in, where I was contending that had they played like Minnesota there, they would have been 10-2. They probably are ranked ahead of Oklahoma at that point because of that head-to-head. But at the end of the day, I can dress that up however I want. They did lose to Florida on the road, and that's what kept them out. So I think they had a legitimate gripe. Vanderbilt probably had a legitimate gripe at 10-2, and their only losses were at Alabama and at Texas. So it's probably another reason to expand this field to 16, but we'll see if that happens. I think we're heading in that direction faster than we thought.
Yeah. Hey, Bill Bender is with us on the Big E Sports Show. He is the Sporting News senior writer, the president of the Football Writers Association of America. We were talking about Notre Dame and Alabama, and Oklahoma's going to face Alabama next Friday night in Norman. So what does this moment represent for the programs nationally?
Well, and I've spent all this time picking things apart and I'm not trying to spread gloom and doom. The best part about this new setup is, I'm sure for you too, you get to see a game in Norman.
Yeah.
You get to see a game at Oregon, at Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, Kyle Field. That'll be quite a spectacle. But this Oklahoma-Alabama game's got a couple layers to it now. It's not just about a rematch between two really good defensive teams. That Oklahoma defense is awesome this year. Brent Venables has done a nice job. John Mateer's healthy. Alabama in those last two meetings against Oklahoma, 3 turnovers, couldn't run the football. And now you have this added extra layer of Kalen DeBoer with the events that have happened at Michigan this week that have been very unfortunate, to say the least. Kalen DeBoer will be a candidate for that Michigan job, a strong one. So until he says no there, you have another layer to this game. So I think it'll be exciting. I think it'll be a defensive slugfest, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, hypothetically, if Oklahoma wins, how significantly does this alter just the national perception of just Brent Venables and the job that he has done at Oklahoma? And just they are going eye to eye and toe to toe with the very best in the SEC.
Well, you know this, that here's something that struck me when they got in the SEC. I remember the first schedule reveal, and I was watching, for whatever reason, I was watching the Oklahoma beat on that, and they were ready. They were embracing it. Yeah, this schedule's really hard, but we can't wait to get in this conference. And it took a year, and it often does with these programs. You see when you have realignment, that first year is a little rough. USC was better in the Big Ten this year. And I think Oklahoma's proven that. The other part is they're very good at home. They are very good at home under Brent Venables. And that showed again this year, aside from the Ole Miss loss, they played very well at home. And they get a chance to show that with that defense. And John Mateer is, like I said, there's been some ups and downs on the offensive side since he broke his hand. But if they can get a couple deep plays in the passing game and shut down Alabama's running game, they'll have a very good chance to win again and push into the second round. And what a game that would be if they were to win Oklahoma, Indiana, and the Rose Bowl. Somebody's going to have to wear a white helmet in that one, though. They have the same exact uniforms.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead too far, but talk to me about it, Bill. You mentioned it. I mean, just how real is this home field advantage in the college football playoff environment? Like facing a program like Alabama in Norman, it's going to be electric.
Yeah, well, in general, like last year, the margin of victory in the first round was 17.8 points per game, whether it was in Columbus or Texas or, Penn State. Now, the straight seeding model might change that a little bit. For Alabama, it'll be a challenge. I think last year when they played at Oklahoma, Alabama had trouble. I believe it was a very windy night, and they had trouble with that. They had trouble throwing the football, trouble with the crowd. And some of these SEC schools that haven't played in Norman, like the Big 12 schools had over the year, had a little trouble with that. So, that will be something for Ty Simpson, who was under pressure and duress a lot in that first meeting against Oklahoma, will be facing in that matchup.
We preview the Oklahoma-Alabama matchup. Got a hit on Indiana. Kurt Cignetti, he has shattered expectations this season. Indiana, what a remarkable story. What has been your takeaway on just this success that they're having at a high level?
Well, I've made the comparison a lot this year that no coach has kind of embodied their program more than Kurt Cignetti. And the last time Bloomington had a guy like that, it was Bob Knight. And completely different style, completely different coach. But Kurt Cignetti's confidence, his arrogance, his swagger has rubbed off on that program like never before. Fernando Mendoza, he's the Heisman frontrunner. They run the football. Most impressed with on Saturday, not many people were really giving them a chance to beat Ohio State, and they matched up well up front. They kept those Ohio State receivers in front, didn't allow the big plays, and he's got a ton of talent there. So, but here we are in the playoff, and I bet you if you look at all those expert playoff brackets, mine included, not a lot of people are going to pick Indiana to win that. And that's just another chip for Kurt Cignetti to use to motivate his players.
Yeah, they'll light them up. Here we are up against the clock, winding down our time. I did want to have you weigh in on the Michigan program, the turmoil. You touched on it lightly. In your mind, who do you think should be the next head coach of the Wolverines?
Well, if they don't get Kalen DeBoer, I think the next call, I don't think they'll go Brian Kelly, even though he's one of those candidates. You would look for a coach like Jed Fish or Kenny Dillingham. Jed Fish coached at Michigan back in. I think they need to break away from the Harbaugh era. No Jesse Minter, just try to get away from these scandals and these things that have plagued the program. Kalen will be a home run if they can get him. If not, I think you'll end up with Jed Fish, Kenny Dillingham, maybe somebody like PJ Fleck. But just keep an eye on this Kalen DeBoer saga. And we get another spin around the coaching carousel if that happens.
You think John Gruden will ever get back into coaching?
That's always been rumored. That's the one that, Tennessee used to do that every year. Other schools. It would be interesting to see him back on the sideline. I've always thought he fit more in the NFL, obviously, but when we haven't seen it, I've heard, I've seen the rumors about Gruden in Michigan. And if he did take a college job, a program like Michigan would be taking a huge risk at that point.
Yeah. My final question for you is going to throw you a little bit of a curveball. Where do you see Bill Belichick and the Carolina program a year from now? How do you think that's going to play out?
A lot of people thought it would only last 1 year. So they did have a strong recruiting class, all things considered, top 25.
Okay.
Fired Freddie Kitchens, so they're going to have a new offensive coordinator. And in this portal era, sometimes, whether it was Bill Belichick or Rich Rod or whoever, when you bring in that many kids from the portal, it's probably not going to work in year one. So I am impressed that he's coming back and committed to it. And this wasn't just lip service, that he's going to stick around and be interested and not go back to the NFL and chase Don Shula's record. So while it was easy to pile on this year, I do think we'll see better results from Bill Belichick in year two.
Yeah, we will wait and see. Always appreciate when you join us on the Big East Sports Show. That, of course, is Bill Bender. He's the senior writer with the Sporting News and also the president of the Football Writers Association of America. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. We'll connect again soon. Thank you.
Anytime. Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me.
You bet.